Wayfarer is rated MA-17 for fantasy and medieval violence, depictions of blood and gore, death, explicit language, sexually suggestive themes, and drug and alcohol use. Player discretion is advised. Keep that in mind, people. Wayfarer is a game about choices, risk, and consequences. Once you've made a choice, there's no going back. Success is never a guarantee. Your journey hinges on a combination of your previous actions, your relationships to other characters, and skill checks. Kind of like D&D. Failure is not an end. It is merely another path, one that may lead to unexpected outcomes. Solid advice. The prologue. In the southern wastes of Artanius, two children traveled down a dark forest road. Watched over by a surly guardian, they hurtle towards a destiny that neither expects. Can't read. Winter, 1231. Covered cart bounces along the mountain path, rolling over pits and pebbles as its wheels churn through the muddied snow. One corner of the canvas cover, torn loose many hours ago, flaps noisily in the cold wind. The horses snort and nicker as they climb the steep path, their driver sternly urging them forwards. Night fell some time ago, and the moon rises above the dark tree line, hanging amid a splash of vibrant stars. You sit in a corner, a fur-lined cloak resting heavily around your shoulders. The cloak isn't yours. It belongs to the cranky dwarf at the head of the cart, and it doesn't fit you very well. A small dagger in a worn leather sheath is strapped to your belt. Another gift from the dwarf. Something he insisted you take, just in case. The journey, he said, would be long, and you never knew the surprises waited for you on the road. What surprise waited for you on the road? God. The inside of the cart is lit by a single lantern strung from the center bow. It swings back and forth, illuminating the sacks of supplies and rations strapped down for transit and your traveling companion, a lanky boy curled up on the far side of the cart. He snores softly, his head drowsily lolling on his shoulders, untroubled by the cart's jostling. Unable to sleep, you stare out the back of the cart, eyes drawn to the disappearing lights in the distance. The cart passed through the last town without thought of stopping, and as it vanishes into the night, so do all chances of hot food and a warm bed. Your stomach growls pitifully. You wonder whether you should say something to your grouchy escort, but think better of it. He fully expects you to be asleep right now. He said some hours ago that the destination is close, and he would wake you when you arrived. Not your fault you can't sleep. It's cold. So cold you could see your breath rise in the light of the lantern. The cart is uncomfortable. You're in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by strangers, and the loose flap is far, far too loud. You ignore your stomach and, trying not to think about food, crawl towards the back of the cart, balancing precariously on the edge. You stick your hand and reach, fingers crawling at the air for the flap. You catch it. The cart hits a bump. You fly forward, a muffled scream ripping from your throat as you are tossed towards the craggy road. A hand grabs you and yanks on your cloak, pulling you back in. You collapse sideways on the floor, breathing rapidly, your cheek pressed against the rough wood. You rock back and forth, feeling every pit and rut on the road as the cart rolls on. Slowly, Getting your jagged breath under control, you look up and stare at the boy who saved you. He sits, cross-legged, with his back against a sack of supplies, his fur coat pooling around his gangly frame. His face, unusually pale, is flushed. The tip of his nose is red. Pointed ears stick out from under a long mop of unruly sandy brown hair. His eyes are blue and earnest. He's around the same age as you, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger. It's hard to tell. He joined the cart a few days ago when you pass Tri- Triridia, a big city, the last haven before the world turns into an endless sea of forests and mountains. You haven't said a word to him. Thanks, I guess. The boy makes a face. You're welcome, I guess. You snort. You're not sure if he's making fun of you or not. The boy smiles. I'm Aaron. Aaron Kellis. Nice to meet you, you say. You push yourself up and scoot backward so your back rests against the edge of the cart. You wrap your arms around your knees and hold tight. Your heart flutters in your chest, leftover panic from your near miss refusing to let go. What were you trying to do, by the way? He asks. You shrug. Nothing. Oh, okay. He looks. Fidgeting with his cloak, he tries not to stare at you. I do mean it, you say, breaking the silence. Thank you for saving me. He grins, cautious yet optimistic. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to fall out and roll all the way back to Tross. Senric would lose it. Rindan Cedric, the cranky dwarf driving the cart. You roll your eyes. You talk a lot, you say. Has anyone ever told you that? And you're grumpy, he shoots back. Has anyone ever told you that? You stare at each other in silence, but you can't hold out for long. A grin splits from ear to ear. You and Aaron dissolve into laughter. The cart pulls to an abrupt stop.